Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Nathan Fowler. I represent Barnes Aerospace as the Global Vice President of Quality. One little comment about what Barnes Aerospace is we are a Type 1 make-to-print supplier and a Type 4 special process supplier. I'll come up a little bit. It'll be relevant here in just a minute. So I will have a disclaimer here for human factors. Right now I'm experiencing a couple. Got a little bit of fatigue because I didn't sleep well last night. And I got a little bit of pressure on me because one, I'm the last person here, last speaker. That's pressure one. Two, the pressure in my sinuses is absolutely killing me. So if I repeat myself, I apologize. So a little disclaimer here. I've got a human factor. Oh, wait a minute. I already did that. Sorry. Thank you. Finance guys, they never laugh. So I appreciate that we got quality and I'll say engineers for the most part in the room. So simple question is, how can we help you? And I'll be honest, I hate that question. That question actually sets up a us, them, you, me kind of scenario. So the we here is actually AESQ. So the reason I mentioned earlier about what Barnes Aerospace does is AESQ is a group of companies that are trying to make our industry better, make our industry safer. It is not a bunch of OEMs. It's OEMs, it's tier one suppliers, it is casting suppliers, it is special process suppliers. AESQ is not only GE, Pratt, Rolls-Royce up here telling you what you must do. So when I think about the you here, the you really is us. How do we help us? Because that's what we're all here for. So when we think about the help that is necessary, I love the fact that this is a signpost, okay? It reminds us that it's the journey, okay? So AESQ, we've been putting out common standards. We want to make sure that everything is, I won't say the same. It's not the same for one customer as it is another, just like it's not the same for one supplier or another. But the important thing is that it is a common standard. The reference material. So I've got a couple things up here. One is about the reference manuals. We've talked extensively about those. We'll cover those a little bit more later. But there's also other reference material that's not owned by AESQ, things like the Supply Chain Management Handbook. And the reason I bring things like that up is because we have people in this room that are on the writing teams for some of the reference manuals for AESQ, and they double on the writing teams for things like Supply Chain Management Handbook. So that there is, I would say, consistency across the industry. The training, we've got a slide in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the training. Focused webinars, you've heard a lot of mention. I'll show you where to go and find the past webinars and then how to sign up for more. We'll talk about how you can get involved in creating content for webinars. It doesn't just have to be someone with this little blue badge on. And by the way, if you want a blue badge, we can help with that too. Communities practice on LinkedIn. Actually joined one of these earlier today and already got the approval from, I think, Lena back there. So thank you for that. And then the newsletter. So a little bit more about that. But when I think back to the signpost here, for any of you who have been in a way that we've had lots of conversations, you know I like to tell stories. And when I think about the signpost here, there's one little story I want to share. This was probably about 10 or 12 years ago, so before 13,100 wasn't really in, first of all, it didn't exist in this state, obviously. But even the zero defect mentality was, we were all getting there, but it wasn't quite ingrained. So we're doing a gimbal walk around the facility, and I'm a quality director there at the time, and I got the engineering manager beside me. And we're walking around, we get to the end of the gimbal walk, and it's the end of the year, and we've got an engineer for this one cell. He's a new engineer, and he says, hey, just want to let you know, I submitted my performance evaluation. At the end of the year, you get to rate yourself, and then your manager says, yep, okay, or no, all that kind of stuff. He says, hey, I want to let you know, I dispositioned 232 non-conformance tags for this one particular part this year. Every one of those I got done in less than a day. And me and the engineering manager, we didn't always see eye to eye. Generally, we got along, but there are a couple sticking points. When he responded to that, I probably could have hugged him. And that response was, why the bleepity bleep would I say thank you for that? I could train a monkey to do the same thing 232 times in a year. And the engineer, eyes wide, mouth open, what are you talking about? So I learned two things right then. The first one is that the engineering manager needed a little bit of coaching on how to deal with humans. Okay, fair enough. The second thing was, as the leadership team, we had clearly not set the expectations for what it was that this engineer, as an example, should be doing. Because he had gone the entire year, was so happy that he had been dispositioning basically one of those a day. If you think about the working days in a year, he had been dispositioning one of those a day, and he was so proud of himself because it was about catching the defects and repairing the parts or reworking, and there were a number of concessions that go on those, but none of those had anything to do with zero defects. Even though we had our gimbal walks, we had our CI program, we were talking about zero defects, but it wasn't coming through. So when I think about this signpost here, the support, the guidance, the help, the advice, that's what it stirs for me, is one, don't talk to people like that. But two, make sure that we as leaders, because regardless of your position, if you're here in the room, you're some kind of leader in your company, that's where we're going with it. So reference manuals. So we've gone through a lot of these SMIGs. I would highly encourage you to read these not just when you're having trouble falling asleep, not just when you've got an audit or an escape that you're trying to go back and answer, but not just that you read them, but your peers read them, the other functions read them, and then ask them, say, hey, talk to your operations leader. I'm not sure what that title is, but your operations leader, say, hey, have you ever read the RM 13006 on process control methods? I think you might enjoy that. Let them go through it, and then a few days later, just ask a few questions. Say, hey, what's the summary in that? I've not read it yet. Can you tell me what's going on? You'd be surprised how often that generates people, because now, even though you have no real power over it, it's that accountability, going back to some of the discussions we've talked about. But more importantly, it gets someone else reading this other than someone who has a title that says quality somewhere in the name. That's the piece of it. So we are creating these. We are revising these. We encourage people in this room to please become part of the teams. Please provide your input. Please ask the questions, because that's how we make revisions. Rev A for 13,100, 870 comments. Are you kidding me? We don't have perfect processes. We don't have perfect reference manuals. Please get involved. The subject matter interest groups, the webinars. So if you go to the AESQ website, and I tried this out earlier just to see what Google would find for me, and just typed in AESQ, and the first thing it takes me is to the website. On the website, I would say it's fairly easy to follow as far as websites go, but there's a little section on there that says events. Guess what happens? You go to events, you can see what the current webinars coming up are, what the past webinars, and you can watch one of those webinars right then. Or just, fast forward to a section. You can send that link to somebody else at your company and say, hey, I know you're struggling a little bit with MSA. You know how to spell it, good, which, by the way, Marnie, wherever you went, I love. Don't know how to spell MSA, I love that. You know how to spell it, but you don't really know how to do it. Maybe you know a little bit about Gauge R&R that we've been doing for, a couple decades, but that's a portion of it, but you're not all the way there. Encourage them. to sign up for some of those individual webinars. Quick Slido question. Easy question. Yes, no. Not a wrong answer, but how many people have attended? Okay, I'm hoping. Oh, there we go. I was like, wow. I thought. So climbing up a little bit. Okay, so getting a mix here. I'll be honest. Don't tell my boss. I've not attended any of these webinars. Helen's over here shaking her head. So I haven't, and for any number of good excuses, but none of those are real reasons. So one of the things I wrote down in my little black book over there is go and find out the webinars that, one, I want to be a part of, and two, I want to go and learn, because I don't know everything about all of these. I have volunteered, and some members of my team, Kevin, have volunteered to be on certain of these teams, which is fantastic. But there are other things that we should be learning about as well. Training always comes up. So we offer a number of activities directly through SAE. These are the items that have specific courses on them. So hopefully you all are familiar with the first three in the pyramid there. So the executive overview, that's kind of like that, 4-minute, kind of know how things are going. You get the quality requirements course, that 10-hour course, which I understand is currently undergoing some revisions, or will be going through some revisions soon. Looking for Sherry? Yeah, there we go. The 3-day quality foundations course. If you're here, likely you've done at least one of those two, if not both. But then we have the courses underneath. Those are the courses that are really getting into the meat and the details. For right now, there's 5 of them. So you want to know more about problem solving. I think that one's a 2-day course. You go and do this. The FMEA and control plans, the APQP and PPAP. Okay, well, I can kind of spell those, but I'm not exactly sure what to do on those. You can sign up for those courses, human factors in aviation, measurement system analysis. So as we go through these, those courses there, those are for fees. Okay, they're not free, but I would ask, anybody want to tell me what you paid for to come to the conference? 0. I heard the number back there. So AESQ, we put on a number of activities. We have the webinars, we have the reference manuals. All of those are free. The supplier conferences, those are free for us. So yes, we've got some paid courses there. Yes, the standard costs money. But it is something that has a tremendous value, especially when that price tag is 0. Okay, how to get involved. What does involvement mean? It can mean lots and lots of different things. So part of that involvement, you go to the webpage. It's really easy. Again, you don't even have to remember this, or you can use the barcode there, but you can just do AESQ, and Google will take you right there. If you use Firefox or one of those other things, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. But Google will get you there. And there under membership, there's that handy dandy little get involved. I don't think this actually shows up there. That's okay. Handy dandy little get involved tab. And you get a few options there. How involved do you want to be? How involved does your company want to be? It doesn't have to be just you. Become a contributing member. So right now we have the 10 steering group committee members. So those are mostly OEMs. We have a few others in there. And then we have contributing members. And right now, Becky, we have 13 contributing members. Barnes, as an example, Barnes Aerospace, we're one of those. Again, if you go onto the website and you look at what those are, you get special process suppliers, you get casting suppliers, you get the tier 1 make to print people. Join the committee, the writing committee. Help the team go through some of those 870 comments. You don't like the way it's written? Get involved in it. Find out how and why it is written the way that it is, and maybe you do have that unique perspective that can actually add into that. So subscribing to the newsletter. You see right now we had roughly 118 people signed up. give or take. I think we had four walk-ins. But subscribe to the newsletter. Right now, that newsletter has about 5,000, a little over 5,000 subscribers to it. Those probably aren't all quality people. So I can't swear that I read the newsletter every month, but I always read all the newsletters. It sometimes takes me a few weeks to go back and say, hey, you know what, I haven't read that last one. Please get involved in doing that. And then join a community of practice. The community of practice can be one of a couple things. So most people in here, I am assuming, are probably on LinkedIn. If you go there and you very simply search, actually I think jumped ahead. We'll come back to the community practice. So there's the newsletter. Again, it will tell you about things like these upcoming conferences. It will tell you about upcoming webinars. It will tell you about new training offerings. It will tell you when we revise standards or revise checklist. There's a lot of good information there. Again, the price is right. It's free. You go in there, you sign up for it, you start getting the newsletter. It's that simple. Community of practice in LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and even if you have never looked anything aviation related ever before, LinkedIn, search AESQ, and it's going to get you to these communities of practice. They are literally the first things that come up. And there's one for nearly all of the SMIGs. I'm not sure if there's maybe one or two missing, but you see some of them listed here. And it doesn't even have to be that, you want to help write it or help drive it. You just want to talk to somebody and say, hey, you know what? How do you manage your sub-tiers? That was one of the questions earlier, was about, how far down does this need to flow? So ask somebody else. You look on there and you say, hey, I'm a special process supplier. How am I supposed to flow this down? How do I need to flow that down? Do you need to flow it down? So the people who will respond in kind are people like all of us. Some of them are going to be experts. Some of them are going to share their opinions. As with anything on the web, you always have to be careful. You have to think and use some deductive reasoning to decide if it's truthful or not. But they may help you think about it in a different way, just a different way about looking at it. So, in something that could be incredibly helpful. And so now, the question, I'm almost done, I've got two Slidos, okay? First one is, how did you hear about this conference? Did you get that email from your OEM? Did you get it from maybe another supplier, another person in the supply chain, excuse me? Did you hear about it on the newsletter? Did you hear about it on LinkedIn? I like the colleague being up there pretty high. So no surprise that the OEM invitation is, one of the top two. That's a good thing. Sometimes the OEMs help us along. We may not always want to be in the same boat, but if we think about the process, think about what we're trying to accomplish with AESQ, with the implementation of zero defects. That's what we want to achieve, not just zero escapes, but zero defects throughout the entire supply chain. And then the last one, this is not a yes, no, you got to put in a few words, but how can AESQ help you? Help us? Is it more webinars that we need? Is it workshops? That was brought up a couple times already, as well as had a couple conversations with individuals asking about workshops. When do we have them? Can we have them? Can you walk us through what this looks like? Standard formats. Anybody want to comment on standard formats, what that means? It says anonymous, and that's okay if you don't want to. That's shared voice standardization, keeping us informed, webinars, tools and resources. So here's a question on tools and resources, not just for the person who says yes. But tools and resources. Are you asking for additional tools and resources that are outside of the ones we already have? Have we already availed ourselves of those? It's an open question for anybody. Okay, come on. You're gonna make me tell another joke up here. The kids are gonna get mad at me if I tell another dad joke. Okay, who flew here today, or flew here this week, right? Getting back to that. Okay, anybody else's arms tired? Okay, who's the rim shot? Nobody? Come on. Okay. Coordinate software solutions, workshops, full 2-day seminars, continuing training, flow down. Okay, so thank you for this. We'll take this, we'll feed it back in through the surveys. Jim mentioned earlier there'll be a separate survey coming out, but this is certainly something that gets fed back into that as well. Any other questions for me before I turn it over to Helen to wrap us up? Nope? Okay, thank you.